Hello and welcome back to another episode of CharlaFootball. I'm your host, Harold Tavares, obviously joined by my amazing co-host right here, Tomas. I know it's been a few days since we recorded, so catch me up, bro. How you been?
Been chilling, bro. Same old, same old.
Yeah,
Nothing
what,
much
what,
going
what
on.
what's the same mold though? I mean, there's not too much football, so like catch me up in like real life. What's going on in your real life?
Just nothing, bro. You've been on me recently for the logo, the shirts, whatever.
Hey, bro, I gotta put you to work somehow. I mean, if you're not gonna be showing up consistently, then you gotta work some. You gotta make it up
I'm
somewhere
there.
else.
I'm there every day, 24/7. I really promise you that.
No, I'm just playing. I do not overwork Tomas, so
Which
if
one? You
anyone,
you
if
practically,
anyone's listening, huh?
you practically run a sweatshop, bro.
Well, if we're gonna make Charla football big, bro, we have to put all our blood, sweat, and tears into it. So it's only right that I make you work your fair share. If I'm the one editing and doing all this crazy shit, but anyways, like I kind of said, there wasn't too much football going on, but there was a few interesting derbies that did happen over the weekend. I do want to touch base on that. I know there was a promotion of Leicester City, and I'm going to talk about that too. But we'll save that kind of for the end. Let's kind of start with the juicy stuff with the derbies first. But before we even get into anything, make sure to follow us on our socials. Make sure to follow Football on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, all that. CHARLA Football. Make sure to support your small creators because together we're gonna make it big, guys. Our dream is to be at the World Cup, not pay for a fucking ticket. When we're gonna do that, so this is how we're gonna feel it. So Tomas, let's get right into it. I know um, you were really into the North London Derby, and I had you with that task. Checking up on a little bit of backstory on that and what happened on this weekend. So talk to me a little bit about the North London Derby that happened over the weekend.
It was just like a really a game that started off pretty boring in the terms that Tottenham didn't seem like a threat at all.
Oh yeah, tell me about it, bro.
And Arsenal gets a 3-0 lead in the first half. Tottenham was nowhere to be found, and all of a sudden, Raya gives Christian Romero a gift. He just
Mhm.
slots it bottom left, and then I think it was like 10 or 15 minutes after Declan Rice just completely recklessly kicks. I think it was Ben Davis.
Mhm.
He just completely kicks him in the middle of the box for no reason. The ball's like Ben Davis hasn't even touched the ball yet, and he already kicked him. It just
Mhm.
made no sense. So obviously, they call a penalty, and then Heung-min Son just finished it.
Yeah, he's never
It's three
gonna
two,
miss
and
those.
it's 3-2, and the game finally gets exciting. But the ref called it. End game 3-2. But in all, what really mattered was Arsenal's 3 points because they continue to breathe.
Mhm.
Although they have one game more than Man City, and they lead by a point. But City has a game less, obviously. So you're not really leading at that point when
Yeah,
you.
it's technically not in your hand. You're waiting for City to slip up,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's in Arsenal's favor too because you're putting that pressure on City.
yeah.
But
For sure. What's really interesting about the North London Derby is really its history.
yeah,
The first game being in, I think it was like 1887. Arsenal back then were based in a town called Plumstead,
mhm,
which was part of Kent. I think it was like Greater London now.
mhm.
And back then they were known as Royal Arsenal. And the game was abandoned.
Wait,
They
that's what their name was like
back
the
then.
whole. So instead of Arsenal FC, it was Royal Arsenal.
Yep.
Okay.
There were some munitionists, I guess, like gun factories.
Hmm.
So that's why it's called Arsenal.
Oh, okay, okay.
So their first game, their first match, it didn't even like come to a conclusion because it got too dark.
What do you mean too dark?
Like it just got too dark. Like there wasn't lights back then. There
Oh,
wasn't like this is the era of football that we're talking about.
yeah, yeah.
It's the sun or you don't play.
Hmm.
And Spurs technically wins 2-1, but there was like 20 minutes left to be played in this first game. But the rivalry didn't really start up until 1913, where Arsenal makes the move to North London.
Hmm.
And in their first real rivalry game, Tottenham just beat Arsenal 6-2. Like just spanked them 6-2. And people still talk about that defeat to this day. Obviously, Tottenham fans, since they haven't really won much.
Yeah. I mean Arsenal
And
too, lucky.
I mean, Arsenal has some Prems in there that they
That's
could
true.
actually flex on
I guess
Tottenham.
in Europe, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, well, the thing with Arsenal is that they had to wait 48 years to be able to score 6 goals on Tottenham,
Hmm.
and well, yeah, that's pretty much it. Not really much going on in North London other than that, than the memory that this derby has left in.
What about because I know you mentioned Tottenham Marshes. Like, where did that come about?
I mean, that was really just what their home stadium was called. It was on the marshes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and well, yeah, it's pretty much it. So doesn't have a lot of detail into their history. It just really shows you like the scores and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, if we're looking at like who has been favored more in this derby, who would you say is the team that had like asserted more dominance throughout the years?
Well, throughout
Especially.
the years, it's been Arsenal.
Mhm,
They have like 80 wins, and I think Tottenham only has like I think 61 with 52 draws.
mhm.
And I mean, it's really in Arsenal's favor. I mean, Arsenal has a bigger fan base as well, which is weird. Coming to think, you watch the game and you don't see one red jersey in Tottenham
Mhm.
Stadium, which is I know it's pretty weird. Well, at least for me to see because we watch the Liga MX and people don't really support their home teams. They support the bigger team usually,
Mhm.
whether it's America, Chivas. Chivas fills up stadiums, airports, they fill up anything really. And this is when they're playing away. So it was kind of weird for me to see that there are two home teams. We had the Clásico Tapatío Chivas Atlas. It was like mostly Chivas fans in the whole stadium, and it was played at Atlas Stadium. And you go to Tottenham and it's all white, like it's white out, like there's not an Arsenal fan in sight.
Is it probably because they don't let them in?
I
That's all I
think
can think.
that has to be some factor. I know here in what was it in the U.S. Mexico when in the World Cup qualifiers when they play in Columbus.
Mhm.
I know that there was well at least back in the day it was brought to light that the Mexico oh no sorry that the U.S. Federation, if you had a Spanish last name and you were like trying to buy a ticket online like in like 2014 World Cup qualifier, even the 2018 World Cup qualifier, and you had a Spanish last name, you probably weren't going to get that ticket.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So maybe they kind of go through a similar process where they have to.
I mean, what Chivas does is that the Chivas Bono, which is like you buy a subscription, and obviously if you buy the subscription, you're a fan of that team.
Mhm.
So I think Tottenham probably has a similar thing where you buy a subscription or something where you could get the tickets faster or quicker.
Yeah, you probably have like some sort of superiority when it comes to buying a ticket, basically.
Yeah. But I thought some Arsenal fans would sneak in or something, but no, not a
Maybe
red.
there were, but I mean, you can imagine being an Arsenal fan.
They probably went on all white.
You're not, yeah, either wearing all white because I mean, the moment you celebrate a goal, that you're probably getting your ass beat right
I
after.
mean, yeah, because did you watch what was this guy's name? Speed in the Etihad.
No, no.
So he was like celebrating the goal, and they were like saying like sit down.
It's probably that's what happens. It's like the culture over there in England where
It's pretty
you
hostile.
know, yeah, it's very hostile. If you're like on the opposing team at their home stadium, like you're most likely gonna get like a beating. Which
Yeah,
is, I mean, it's sad to see, but I mean, it's just football culture. That's something that you can't really. It's really hard to
and
change. You're not
I
gonna
remember
change the way people
there
react.
were stories, in the when Liga MX would go play in Argentina. When Bofo got freaking headbutted by Palermo, and there was a whole thing and getting rocks like cement rocks thrown at him.
Yeah,
I mean, even the coach spit on him. I mean, it was just. I think Argentina and England are really similar in the way that they go about football.
yeah,
They take passion to an extent, and it's just it turns into violence.
yeah. That's sad, but it's kind of. I mean, it's what football brings out.
Yeah,
It's with these derbies. It's like a lot of people don't understand that it's not every game, but when it comes to games where there's such a huge rivalry, like the North London Derby, like every team wants to be the best in their city, and then
yeah.
that's something that we're going to touch into with the derby that I'm going to talk about next up. But it's just something that like everybody wants to be the best, especially in their own city, and then you give a little bit of like that history and that factor that like, oh, one team's been more dominant, and then they're always like kind of bullying the other team into making them feel like they're less than. And I mean, that just kind of just creates like this fire basically.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're Tottenham, you're not, or you're kind of fighting for much, but everything really is in Villa's hands. I mean, you're probably gonna play Europa League if
Mhm.
you put in fifth. But I mean, Tottenham obviously wants to ruin the party for Arsenal. Arsenal. If Arsenal would have lost this game, it would have been over.
Mhm.
And I was really thinking about that when Tottenham got the second goal. But obviously, the game ended. Arsenal handled the pressure pretty well, but it shows that they're prone to give up goals in moments where they feel confident.
Yeah. Maybe they just thought they were a little too confident once they were already up 3-0 in the first half. I mean, you go
Yeah,
back into the locker room after winning 3-0 that first half, then you're pretty confident that the other team's not going to come back. But I mean, there's still a quality opposition in Tottenham.
yeah,
So
sure.
they were just lucky that that second goal came in kind of like that was like the 85th minute, right when Human Song scored his penalty,
Yeah,
like around the 85th minute. So if it was any earlier, then I think they probably would have been able to drive, but it was just too late.
yeah.
Now, a game that ended in a draw and another interesting derby. Maybe it's not as popular as the North London Derby, but there's that similar hatred, and one that I think has a very rich history, a very colorful history, is the Derby Sevillano. So it's the literal like the Seville Derby. It's a local derby between Real Betis and Sevilla. Real Betis, who right now in the league, they're doing okay, much better than their counterpart in Sevilla. Sevilla have been like atrocious. I don't know if it was the change of management or just the instability throughout the club and all that's been going on. But Sevilla, I think right now they're like in 12th or 13th place, just like a few points above relegation, which is very unheard of because Sevilla are the type of team that they're always fighting in Europa League or, maybe fighting in the Champions League, at least in the groups. And they're trying to always fight for top four, top five.
Yeah.
But this year has just been complete opposite. And Real Betis are the ones that are fighting for that Europa Conference League spot. I don't think they're going to get Europa League um, right away. Maybe they'll probably get that playoff spot. But it's a local city derby that began in around the same year the North London Derby started, when it was like 1913. This was 1915 exactly. The first match was in a Copa del Rey final where Sevilla won 4-3, and that's kind of where it started. But like before that first match came about, Sevilla was the first club to be founded in Seville. Obviously, it goes all the way back to 1890. So again, going back to that period of like the late 1800s, where I guess soccer is barely starting to emerge in Europe. A group of Brits and locals in Sevilla, they planned to make a team, and then by 1905, Sevilla FC started. That's where like literally the day that Sevilla became a club. And then after a few years later of being kind of successful, you see there's some disputes within the club at Sevilla, and then these people that had started the beginning of the club, they end up leaving to start their own club. I don't know what exactly happened, but all I know that there was some sort of dispute within the club. Two directors go off on their own venture in the same city, and then they create Real Betis Balompié by 1914. So just a few decades later.
I mean, that reminds me of the story of Liverpool,
Mhm.
because in 1892, with a disagreement like between the directors of Everton and I think it was the president. I forgot his name. I think it was like John Holding,
Mhm.
because he owned the club's ground, which was Anfield. So a dispute over the rent. So Everton moved to Goodison Park, and then the owner, he that stayed at Anfield, he named it Liverpool. So that's
Mhm.
really how that rivalry happened as well. So it's kind of a similar story.
Yeah, no, definitely similar. So it started like there was never going to be another club, but because whatever happened, whatever fight went down, it ended up making them like back out and do their own thing. They're like, fuck it, no, we're just gonna start our own club. You don't want us to be a part or get paid. I don't know exactly what happened, but that's kind of how the rivalry started to begin. But not only is it a classic rivalry just because of the tie to the city, like I was telling you right now, that obviously every team wants to be the best, especially in their city. But think about how local these two teams are. They're about like a 15-minute drive apart from each other. So they're literally just down the street from each other. So they there is like this sheer hatred between both fan clubs, and that kind of comes from this narrative that, I mean, throughout history, it's said that Seville were seen as like the rich class, the wealthy side of Sevilla, versus Real Betis were kind of seen as like lower class, they're a little bit more dirty. But then you see how it is now, and it's kind of not true on both sides. I think it's up for interpretation, but on both sides, they're both pretty wealthy.
Yeah.
So that whole like idea of lower class, higher class is just a dispute. It's just a rumor, pretty much. But of recent years, it's really hard to call it a rivalry or a derby because it's pretty much been Sevilla who's clear. They've dominated the derby in abundance in recent years. Albeit the last four meetings, I think they've drawn all four. Especially with this one, this one was not any different. Another 1-1 draw with Isco scoring and Quique Salas scoring for Sevilla under Manuel Pellegrini. Betis, who under Manuel Pellegrini have been playing just some attractive, beautiful football, and that's why the reason they're such a good place right now. I know you are familiar with Manuel Pellegrini. I mean, he's done incredible work with Manchester City, and I think he was with Chile at some time too. But
Agüero.
with who?
No, sorry. I was just remembering the Agüero.
Agüero, yeah. I mean, how can you forget? He was the one that managed. That was their first prem, right?
I think that was their first Prem. They had won the English title, but it was called something else back then.
Yeah, so Pellegrini, incredible coach, obviously working wonders with Real Betis, and like I said, they're trying to sneak into that European spot. But we kind of like how I've been explaining like their whole like league standpoint, where in the league, Sevilla have been struggling and Betis are doing a lot better. You see that in the game as well, where it was all Betis throughout the whole 90 minutes. Sevilla had probably like one chance besides that one header that Kike Salah had scored in the second half. It was just a free kick, pretty much. And that's all they had. And one player that I wanted to highlight, and it's really weird to say, and you wouldn't expect him to be on the Betis team, is Isco. I know Isco is a very important player like throughout our youth because he was in part of that legendary Madrid team that won the three back-to-back Champions Leagues. And he even started that final. I think when Cristiano Ronaldo scored that bicycle kick against Juventus, he played the whole game, or he played I think most of the game. He for sure started.
Oh, yeah.
So Isco, I was gonna ask you. I know you've seen him a lot more too. Is he one of the last few like midfield magicians that we've seen live? Because I feel like now football's in a state where it's a lot more robotic, a lot more systematic. Everyone has a defined role. Everyone has a set role. Isco was never really that kind of player. He was always kind of like that free roaming kind of number 10. He would drop deep. He would go and attack.
I mean, I've said this before. Like people pinpoint stats so much that at this point, like Kaká would have been one of the worst players in the world if you pinpoint his stats.
Mm-hmm.
Because all Kaká would really do is drop low, carry the ball forward, and obviously he had a couple of few goals. Well, not few goals, a lot of goals, because he did have a career with big teams. But if you look into like the complicated games, he would really carry the team in the form of carrying the possession, the midfield being able to go forward, like Pirlo as well. With those long balls, he was such a threat. I mean, the midfield magicians in our era would be probably like Pirlo, Kaká. Who else? I mean, there's always a few. That's why they're always so. Well, Ronaldinho was also a solid midfield magician. Busquets is different because he's not as offensive. You know what I mean? Like Isco is an offensive midfielder as well as Ronaldinho, Boya, Kaká. It's just that either way, you can't name a lot in any era of football.
Mm-hmm.
So would he be one of the last ones? I mean, we still have De Bruyne.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like when it comes to pure flair. I mean, De Bruyne, I think he's an incredible player, but he's very. I think he's also kind of like a systematic player. But he will put up crazy amount of numbers, but like I'm talking about just like when it comes to like little tricks and I don't know, just what he does with the ball, at his feet.
I mean, the thing is that from the early 2000 eras, like late 1990s to early 2000s, it was really just talented players that you would focus on buying. The Ronaldinhos, the Kakás. I mean, it was an era that not even the Brazilians of today have that or show that talent. You get me? If you compare Vini to Ronaldinho, Ronaldinho clears I mean, even Neymar clears Vinny or Rodrigo in the terms of talent. You get me? They're just that flair that you're looking for. It's really so hard to find, and it's not really found anymore. And I see how what you're saying, with Isco being one of a few left, because there is not that much. But
Yeah,
this,
I feel like midfielders or just players in general are they're kind of limited to what they can do when it comes like to a coach at a coaching standpoint. Like they don't tell you to do all these fancy things anymore. It's just like you get the ball, pass the ball, you get the ball, pass the ball, which
yeah,
is how football should be played. I agree, but you always want to see like those free thinking midfielders, and I feel like he's just one of those few where like you just let him do whatever he should be doing on the ball, and he's going to produce for you. And and speaking on that, and you were speaking on statistics. Statistically, I don't think it's one of his best seasons. I think just this season alone, he's only had like 8 goals and 6 assists, which
yeah,
is pretty underwhelming. But think about the club that he's playing for. But besides just statistics, like if you're just watching him, you see how influential he is in the middle of the park for Real Betis. I think he's won
yeah,
like 18 MVPs this season. So 18 MVPs out of like 26 matches that he started.
yeah. I mean, for sure. Like you look into, there was a debate as well, which was similar between the Liga Mix, like who was better, Antuna or Piojo Alvarado for Chivas.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that same thing with Isco comparing to Piojo. Isco might have less goals, but he's more influential.
Yeah.
Like the same thing with Piojo Alvarado. You have him dropping. You have him dropping next to getting a pass from the center back, like side to side, and he carries the ball up, which is something that I've seen Isco do. He drops, gets it from the center defensive mid, and he carries the ball trying to create something. And the thing is that if you take Isco out of this Betis team, there wouldn't be really any creation going forward.
Mhm.
Same thing
I
with
have, I
Chivas.
have a few creative players, but I think Isco's just he just has so much experience. I mean, he is in the latter stages of his career. I think he's like 33 or so. Um, but he has so much experience and so much like wisdom on the ball, and he's definitely like proving that and showing that now. It's which is really weird because he did play for Sevilla too for a little bit. I think last season, and you didn't see the same Isco that you're seeing today. So I don't know if there has to do something with the fact that he's playing under his previous coach, Manuel Pellegrini. Because I don't know if you know this, but he used to play at Malaga, Isco, at that Malaga team that went to the Champions League semifinal. I think they played against Dortmund in the semifinal. So he was part of that famous run with Malaga. And Manuel Pellegrini was that coach then. So I don't know if the fact that Pellegrini is the coach for him once again in like the latter stages of his career, he's kind of like rejuvenated and finding like his best form once again.
I mean, I think it could be a factor because I mean, if he's like one of his earlier coaches, he knows Isco and what he's capable of, so he gives him more freedom to do what
Mm-hmm.
he knows he can do.
Yeah, yeah,
That would be something like that.
yeah. And you're starting to you. I've been seeing that throughout the whole like La Liga season, at least with Isco and Betis. But yeah, I mean, these are just some of the derbies that I just wanted to touch on because, I mean, like I said, I mean, all the title races are coming to a close pretty much. La Liga's wrapped up. Madrid's for sure going to win. Liga's wrapped up with PSG and Kylian Mbappe winning. We got Germany already wrapped up. Man City, the only title race that's really is spicy right now is the Premier League. But other than that, everything's kind of coming to a close. One of the title races that I know we've kind of been lacking on covering is the championship one. And one of the teams that did secure promotion over the weekend was Leicester City. No, not over the weekend. I think it was last week, actually. Leicester City. They secured promotion against Southampton, beating them 5-0 with still 2 games. Still got 2 games to go.
Yeah,
It was weird because Leicester City I think they were clear like probably 20 points for a specific part of the season. And I don't know if it was after the recent, like the winter transfer window. I think when
Mhm.
that closed, they went in this poor dip in form where they were losing games after games back to back, and now they're only 4 points clear. So it was pretty close where they could have been at least knocked out of that promotional fight, but they got back on their feet, and now we're going to see Leicester City back in the Premier League after what it's been almost 10 years. No, it's been
No,
like
no, like 2 years, I
four.
think.
Oh wait, two. I don't know where I got 10 years. I think 10 years. 10 years ago was when they won
They won the Prem.
the
Yeah,
Prem almost 10 years ago. And that's actually just one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Was 2016 one of the best years in football? because not only, I mean, you hear that word and you hear those numbers 2016. A lot of people, at least in our age group, they'll be like, "Oh, 2016 was such a good year," whether it
Yeah,
was for music, pop culture, or whatever was in the air that year. I don't know, but I can also attest to that. That 2016 was a really good year. Maybe not the best year, but I mean, throughout my youth, that's one of the years that has always like, for whatever reason, it's piqued interest in our culture and our age group.
yeah,
And you think about it in the world of football, and you see Leicester coming up that year, that 2015-2016 season, they got promoted and they win the Premier League that same year. So does do you kind of agree that 2016 was one of the best years that we've lived so far?
yeah. I mean, it has to be. It was just so much more relaxing. Like it was the whole. I remember that summer, and it's one of the best summers I've ever had.
Yeah. I mean, bro, you were younger though. How old are you? Like
I
12,
was
13?
like 13.
Mm-hmm.
I was 13, and I remember all I really focused on was playing soccer, and I was traveling a lot because of soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much all I remember. With my teammates, we had like 4th of July, just all these things that are so worry free.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, when you're younger, you don't have a lot to worry about. Now we got like bills and payments, insurances, and relationships and figuring out our future and all that crazy shit. But I mean, it's just part of life. But now you look back at 2015, 2016, that was such a good summer, good year in general. And maybe we can experience another summer like that with Leicester City back. Maybe it's something about Leicester City being in the Premier League that changes the environment or something. I don't know.
Jamie Vardy.
It's Jamie Vardy, and that's something that I know you wanted to talk about. Is Jamie Vardy's what is it called? His loyalty to one club, because yes, he's been at other clubs, smaller clubs before he got to Leicester, but I mean, once he really started to achieve things with Leicester, he even went down with them. He's never left, even though he had the opportunity to go to multiple top European clubs. He's probably one of the best English strikers behind Harry Kane.
Yep. I mean, at one point, it was really just him and Harry Kane looking at leading the top goal scorers.
Hmm.
And I mean, Jamie Vardy. I mean, at the time when Leicester was relegated, a lot of teams still wanted Jamie Vardy. He could have easily left and stayed in the Prem, but for some reason, he just decided to go with Leicester. And I have to respect his loyalty.
I mean, what would you have done? Would you have gone to another club if your team is this? If your team's going down?
The thing is that if I'm pretty sure if I would have lived Jamie Vardy's footballing career, where he really takes off at 25 years old, I probably would have stayed as well, in the terms of that, this was the first team that I won a Premier League title with.
Yeah,
I have
like
so
they
much
gave you
memory.
everything basically.
Yeah. I mean, because that Leicester team, after winning the Prem, it was really just picked apart. You have Riyad Mahrez going to City. I know you have a couple of the other players going to other teams in Europe.
Conte went to Chelsea.
They went to Chelsea. Yeah. I mean, like, things like that. It was a team that could have definitely stayed together and done something special in a better Champions League run as well.
Mhm.
But I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. No, I love that they're back in the Premier League. I think there's still a few more games left. I think there's like one or two other teams. I think it's two other teams that promote, right? Because three are relegated.
Yeah.
So there's the talk of Ipswich Town going to the Premier League, and I forgot the other team that is going fighting for that third spot. I think it's Leeds. Leeds are second, and then Ipswich Town is right below them. So those three might be the teams that are going to be coming back into the Premier League. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of just bring it up because I mean, 2016. How can we like not talk about it? It's one
How
of the
can you
most.
forget 2016?
Yeah, how can you forget 2016? And I mean, you
I'm
think about all the things that happened, like Leicester's promotion and their Premier League run, and then you see the double XL freshman. You hear talks of Harambe and memes and music.
Yeah. Oh, Harambe.
Oh, just a bunch of shit happened that year, and I'm hoping that kind of replicates itself this year with them back. And something that I thought was interesting was now that they're going to be back in the Premier League. Back then their odds were 5,001 to win a Premier League, which is extremely like
Low.
almost extremely low. Like what are the possibilities? And they did it. They were at 5,001. Now with them back, you think those odds are similar or higher, lower? What would you put it at?
The thing with the Prem in that era is that you didn't have this well put City team. You didn't have an aspiring Arsenal team like this one. I mean, their real only competition was Chelsea and a newly formed City team, which was under Pep, where they got third.
Hmm.
And I mean, they were just able to run through everybody that year. But they had really great players that season, and I don't doubt that they have really good ones this year. But just to replicate, Riyad Mahrez in the team, and at that point, you probably had a what I would call a prime Jamie Vardy. Like, is Vardy still at that same elite striker level? Because he was getting called up for the English national team.
Mm. I
I
mean,
saw bro was on Vogue. Like,
but his stats are still pretty good. I mean, he's played around 20 or so games, 20 plus games. I think he's had a fair amount of goals. I think it was like definitely 10 plus and double digits in assists as well. So he's been putting up good numbers. Obviously, not his prime numbers when he was in the Premier League, but maybe he can give us one more run. Maybe he can give us at least one more run, one more year, because he is 37. He's at that age where he's almost ready to retire.
yeah,
But it'd be beautiful to see him, put up one more really good run with Leicester City. I think even just to get top six would be such a good achievement.
yeah, for sure. I mean, the Premier League is just at the top of it's been more competitive than years prior, at
Mhm.
least this season.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, I completely agree. Because now you're gonna fight with a top Arsenal team, a top City team.
Or
Chelsea's not really in there. You got Liverpool,
Liverpool.
Manchester United. I guess it's gonna. I don't even know if they're competition right now. But those are for sure the top three that you're gonna be fighting. And Villa, even though they're as inconsistent, those are definitely the teams to be watching out for next year, and that are gonna give City quite a tough time. But I mean, if they can get it together like they have been, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to replicate something. I mean, if you already have that kind of that motivation, you have some similar players that were already there. They're going to be probably giving the pep talk of their lives during halftime or before any matches. Like, oh, let's do the same shit that we did a few years ago, and we can do it.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. That's probably gonna be their motivation. We did it back then. What's the difference now?
Yeah, they're gonna be like, well, maybe we got better players now. I don't know. I haven't seen them consistently enough to be like, oh yeah, this Leicester City team is better than the one like 5-10 years ago. But
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out in the next coming months. But that kind of wraps up everything. We talk about the derbies, we talk about Leicester City coming back. Thank you, Tomas, for always joining and helping me out, bro. I
For sure.
genuinely appreciate you. We're gonna get a new logo coming up. Hopefully, we're gonna get some merch coming. We're gonna get just a whole new process starting and flowing because we want to make this grow. We want it to be as professional for us and for you guys that are listening, whoever is listening right now. We appreciate the support, and like I said earlier, together we're gonna make it grow pretty much. So thank you for turning to Football. Make sure to follow, subscribe, check out our socials as well, and we'll see you on the next one.